Welcome to round two of today's episode because we previously started recording this, and for the first time ever, I realized that I had my mic muted. So, we're
Oh,
gonna.
it would have been so fun.
It would. It was yeah. It would have been kind of funny to upload that, and people like they can all hear
Yeah.
you but not hear me. So,
Yeah, like
um,
as you speak a lot for a very
this
long period of time
it's
alone.
fair. It
That
it might have
yeah.
been fair to have you have a chance to be the only one talking for a long time.
Unfortunately, I didn't know you had the
I didn't
microphone
either.
muted.
So today
Ah,
we're going to
okay.
be talking about um, cancel culture or refund culture and um, people who review bomb games. We're going to be talking about Steam. We're going to be talking about the recent controversy surrounding City State Entertainment and their decision to launch this other game simultaneously. Also, Ashes of Creation have done this with their Battle Royale game, and whether or not customers should be allowed to have a refund in these scenarios or in any scenario at all. I am going to reintroduce my
And
wine. Go ahead. And
I
what?
was saying, and we will try to stay as passionate and genuine
As
as
we
we
were the first
were
time.
during the first
So
recording.
today is a new wine that my wife picked out from the winery is Grifol de Clara, which is in Catalonia, I believe. Um, it's a red Garnache, Garnacha Negra, called El Gos. It's pretty good, actually. My wife did good with this selection. And you guys missed it because during the first recording, I poured her a glass and we were talking about that, but then
Yeah,
unfortunately,
and he did the pluck,
yeah, I
the
pulled the
opening of the
yeah.
bottle,
I can
like,
actually do that again real quick. So let's remimic how that happened.
yeah.
Oh, it's not nearly as loud as it
Oh,
was the first time.
no.
Nope. It
You
was all
need
the
to,
pressure from yesterday because I opened it yesterday.
yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna move on. So, Austin Game Conference 2017. We had a discussion with Jack Emmert from Daybreak Studios, who at the time had suggested that we needed to put our game on Steam because it was the only place we were going to be able to get enough traction as an independent company. And we've had people ask us over the years, why aren't you on Steam? And there are a variety of reasons, one of which is I don't agree with sharing revenue to do something that I can do on my own. So, as an example, with a publisher, um, if they come in and take a cut of the percentage, cut of the profits. In exchange, they're doing publicity and they're out there marketing our game for us. It's part of what a publisher is doing. Um, Steam doesn't do anything for you. They just allow you to put your game on the platform and they take a huge percentage of your profits, but they don't actually do anything. You still have to do all the hard work of marketing your title. So at the end of the day, I looked at that and said, why would I want to give, 30, 40% of my income away to some company that's not doing anything? Like it's a digital platform. I have my own digital platform. Like makes no point. But the two big reasons that I never was going to put my game on Steam was first and foremost because you cannot control the commentary. And up until the last year or two, they allowed review bombing to take place. Nowadays, they have an algorithm in place that looks for patterns of review bombing and will eliminate those reviews from a title. Um, but
And for those that do not know, like me, before this episode, what review bombing is like when you have one guy that hates your game, bring all his friends, and they say, let's send a lot of review. And suddenly you have like a dozen and dozen and dozen or hundreds of really, really bad review on your game or really, really good review on your game. But in one case or the other,
sure,
it's not fair because it's not genuine, it's not real reviews, it's just biased
yeah,
clients
it's
that are
it's it's
trying to
fake.
influence their thing.
Yeah, so in this case, I looked at that and said, I'm not going to subject my game to the whims of trolls because I do believe in fair reviews and fair
Mm-hmm.
criticisms. That's true. Um, Everybody should be aware. If you're creating something and putting it out there as a creative individual, whether it's a book or a painting or music or whatever, there are review systems in place, and critics have their platforms and etc. But review bombing is something completely different. It's completely unethical. And I said, if Steam is going to allow that, I don't want to put my game on there for that reason. And second of all, because Steam has, I don't know if they still do. I don't really use Steam very often, but I believe it's a 30-day refund policy in place for most things, which means someone can literally buy your game, play it for a whole month, and then decide that they don't like some aspect of it and
Or
get
they
their
have
money
just
back.
done it. Oh, finish the game. Now I'm refunded.
Yeah, which is completely wrong in my book. What we were talking about before is that, if you've bought my game and you can't install my game because some reason, right, and we can't help you troubleshoot it, then sure, we'll give you a refund. But the ones I've seen on like Massively OP or mmorpg.com, and we were just, before I realized we weren't recording the episode, we were talking about Estelia a few moments ago, which is a game that most recently came out. And on mmorpg.com in particular, I noticed a thread where someone was talking about how they bought the game, didn't like the graphics of the game, and now demanded a refund. And I looked at that and went, that's everything that's wrong with cancel culture. Like, this is cancel culture at its finest and refund culture at its finest. You have a person who, for the game has been out there for like 2 years at least, being promoted. There's been marketing, publicity, so on and so forth. There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of screenshots that you can look at. There have been dozens, if not hundreds, of videos you can watch of people playing the
There's
game, and there's
streamers,
streamers.
beta testing.
There's so many ways that you can preview a title before you make a purchase. So to me, saying that the graphics are crap or the graphics suck and that's why you want a refund of the game is not a valid reason why you should be allowed a refund. Same goes for, I didn't like the gameplay. The gameplay sucked. It's too slow, too fast, whatever. You had lots of ways to research whether or not that was going to be a type of game that would fit your desires, your likes or dislikes. Because you didn't like it after you bought it is not a reason that you should be able to get a refund. You had used a good example of cereal. I'll let you explain that again.
Yeah. When you go to the supermarket and you purchase a pack of cereal, you go and you eat it. And then you come back to the supermarket. Oh, I didn't like those cereals. Can I have a refund? What will the supermarket tell you? Well, at least in Europe, it's say, well, that's too bad.
You ate it.
Don't purchase it
Yeah.
again. And that's it. I do really believe that money is there to exchange services. So it's one resource, which is the money, that you will give to someone for the work they have done and for the product they have offered to you. It doesn't matter if it's digital or not and that you cannot really grasp it and touch it. This product do exist. This product have costed people energy, time, resource, money, investment, work, sweat, blood, and everything you can imagine for you to enjoy or not their product if you purchase it, if you are playing through it. It's only fair that you have paid for it. So it's up to the client to really analyze if his choice of purchase is good or not. You have to be careful. But if you purchase and consume one thing, you owe the person that have produced that thing some money.
Yeah.
So I am for testing period. I'm for free weekend. I'm for beta testing and all the kind of stuff, especially for MMORPG because the investment is on long term. The game is not so expensive, but after you want to be sure that I think the game is worth your time investment. It's maybe more that even than money, but refunding a game if you have purchased and you are using it and you don't like it, that's only your
It's
problem.
crazy talk. That's like the example I've always used is the airplane ticket. I buy an airplane ticket. I have a limited window of time in which I can refund that ticket. But after that window is up, I now own that ticket. I then fly from point A to point B. I'm not allowed to get off the plane at my destination, turn around and say, the air conditioning was way too cold. I was uncomfortable the whole trip. Therefore, I didn't like my flight. I want my money back. You don't get to do that because you used the service. Like, there was nothing wrong with the service. It got you from point A to point B. Everybody's got different levels of what's comfortable in terms of air conditioning. You should have brought a blanket. You should have asked for a blanket. You should have worn a sweater. There are lots of ways you can stay, warm and not be too cold. So just because you don't like something is not a reason for getting a refund. There needs to be a flaw And this is what's very, very important. There needs to be a flaw in the product for you to be able to be justified a refund. Now, a
Mhm.
flaw dictates that there's actually something wrong with the product. I order a burger, the burger comes, it's undercooked, or the lettuce is rotten, or the cheese is moldy. That's a flaw in the product. I have the right to ask for a refund at that point because the product is not what it's supposed to be. Now this is where there's some gray areas because some people say that the launched version of a game is not the same as what was advertised and they'll try to claim false advertisement. But to date, I don't really think there's been anybody that's been able to actually make that claim and get away with it in court because as a general rule, when a streamer is promoting my game or the media is portraying my game or any game, it doesn't have to be our game. Um, they're talking about it however they want to talk about it, and we can talk. I can talk about things like, the crafting system, and the crafting is going to be like X, Y, and Z. I can also make sure that I'm very careful to say, but the full version of crafting will not be in the game at launch. I've also talked about how we're going to have housing. Housing is not going to be in the game at launch. So if someone were to buy the game, log into the game, and try to make the claim that my product is broken because it didn't include housing when I previously said that there was going to be housing in the game, I can very clearly go back and point to every single place where I've mentioned housing and say, yes, but I specifically said not in the launch product. It's written right there in the fact page, not in the launch product. This is something that will be coming later on in the game. So people who try to claim that a product is broken when they purchase it because they don't like something or they misheard, this is very important, they misheard or misunderstood something that the developer said in a live stream or in an interview, that is not the same thing as false advertising and it's not the same thing as a broken product. Uh, Bad graphics could be 50 different things. Could be your hardware, could be a glitch in your graphics system, it could be your software's out of date. You haven't updated your drivers, blah 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 blah
Or just
blah,
your tastes.
or just your tastes. You might not like the visual style of this game. That's not a justifiable reason to get a
No.
refund. So this,
And
go ahead.
sometimes we had it has already happened to have people asking a refund for a game for, we could say, a sort of ethical or moral or humanitarian compassion side of things. um, like I cannot play this game because now I have a baby, and my I am out of money. I cannot pay my bills anymore. I'm struggling and whatever. And however, how heartbreaking can be to claim, considering that they are right and that the person is not lying.
It's not my fault, not my
But
problem.
but it's, yeah, it's
Not to be rude, but
unfortunately,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's not something you cannot be the good Samaritan and always say, all right, then in that case, I will refund your game.
No, because the moment
Because
you do it for
otherwise,
one
you're,
person, you have to do it for everyone, and then everyone starts making up excuses. And
yeah,
some of them may
exactly.
be valid, but many of them won't be. And that's why
Yeah,
you
exactly.
can't make exceptions like that. There has to be rules and regulations in place to guard these things.
And
Um,
it's something you, as producer of something, you have to protect yourself first, not in a
yes.
greedy way, but
No.
in a fair way. You have worked, you are offering a service. Now the person like or don't like your service, feedback is always nice, but refunding, no.
No. I have always
It's just
had,
no.
um, for all of our pre-orders, we have always had a very strict no refund policy in place, and that will continue to be the case when we reopen the store in March, and that will continue to be the case for when we have launched a live product. I will never allow refunds just because. I will offer refunds, and I think we have actually done 2 or 3 refunds in the past, like 3 years, for people who, for whatever reason, we had one guy, for example, he was living in, I want to say it was like in Russia, um, and was just living in the middle of nowhere and was basically on like dial-up speeds, and just for whatever reason, like he could not get logged into the client. And Richard and Bobby both worked with him, I want to say for like 10, 20 hours over the course of multiple days trying to figure out what was causing him to not be able to log into the client. And at the end of a couple of days, they couldn't figure it out. So we just offered him his money back because it's like, well, you can't get into the game, you know, it would be unfair of us to keep your money when you can't log in. But that's a
Hmm.
completely different scenario. Like we've had people come to us and say, well, it's too my favorite is it's too early on in the alpha process. I'd like my money back. And it's like, no, you had, a novel's worth of content that you had to read through that talks about where we're at in the stage of development. The servers aren't up 24/7. It's pre-alpha. It's blah 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 blah. You had to click like 6 times the terms of service, which again clearly state where we are in the state of our development and how we're not open all the time. We're in early access. It's not been optimized. Blah 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 blah. Like you have absolutely zero ground to stand on if you try to say that you didn't understand that the servers weren't going to be up 24/7, that you didn't realize what an early state the game was going to be in, because we've from a legal standpoint, we have covered our butts to make sure that there are, everything's in triplicate, if not quadruple. Is it quadruplicate? I don't really know how to say that, but we've covered our
See?
butts legally to make sure that people understand way before they ever actually click the actual final pay button through PayPal, that they understand where we're at in the state of our development and all these other things. So there is none of this whole, well, we didn't understand and you didn't explain it, but no, Like it's there, big bold red letters in a pop-up and clicks that you have to go through. Like, you know, and I don't believe in giving people refunds just because they don't like something or blah 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 blah. Like, it has to be a technical reason why we
No,
give somebody a
in
refund.
here, the thing with you or with Stormhaven Studio, the way we are doing, it's really being extremely careful with the people that may want to purchase the game. You're
I've
sure you
told
want
people
that.
no.
There's even a blog post, all the reason to not purchase our game. I mean, there is no way of being more fair and more honest than that. You cannot do better. And it's really, guys, if you want to purchase our game, be sure of what you're doing. And then thank you very much for your
Yes.
support.
And I
But
mean,
that's
there have
it.
been 10, 15 times that I can think of off the top of my head where I've actually cautioned people and been like, don't just buy our game because you want to, get in and be a part of the testing community. Like, make sure that you can afford it, make sure that you understand what's going on, blah 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 blah. Because once you're in, you're in. You don't get there's no takebacks. Um, which brings me to the City State Entertainment kind of debacle that's been going on. So last week, might even have been earlier. No, I think it was last week. Last week or early this week, um, Mark Jacobs from City State Entertainment announced that um, they were going to be releasing, working on and releasing a separate title alongside of Camelot Unchained, and this game would be coming out before Camelot Unchained. So he says that they went out and got investor money to work on this new project, and that this new project had a bunch of features that were going to allow them to enhance what's happening with Camelot Unchained. Now, Camelot Unchained, if I'm not mistaken, I've not double checked this, I've not verified this, so don't crucify me if I'm misquoting. But what I've seen everyone talking about is that the Kickstarter was back in 2013, so 7 years ago now, and the game still isn't out. And you have a lot of people who, up until this point, have been happy to go along for the ride because they have early access. They're able to test, they're able to play, they're able to get in and get their hands on the game. Um, but this announcement that they're going to simultaneously develop another title and release it before the game that these people pledged for and pre-ordered years ago now has a lot of people very upset. Now, City State Entertainment has been very unique in the sense that over the years, they have always had a kind of blanket refund policy in place where you can get a refund on almost every single pre-order tier that they've got. I think there's at least one, if not two tiers, where they very specifically said, you're not going to be able to get a refund for this, but everything else you can get refunds for. And a lot of people over the years might have been disappointed with the time it was taking Camelot Unchained to get to release, but they were comfortable waiting because they were able to test it on a regular basis. But the moment that they found out that there was this other title that's now being worked on simultaneously and it's going to release before the game that they pledged, now they're upset and they want their money back. So this is an interesting situation because
Yeah, it's more complex.
it's very complex.
It's more gray than the other
Right,
case we
because
were discussing about.
on the one hand, these people have had access to this game for 5, 6 years, the alpha, and they've been testing and playing and actively logging hours. So in terms of getting their money's worth, they've definitely got their money's worth already, even though it's not a finished product.
It's not about that. It's here in the case you're right. You in the sense where some people among the community had access to the game. Not everyone is interested in alpha testing. People that are pledging for a game, they want the game to be released. So they're not pledging to have the game in test. They are pledging, I want to play this game once it's released, and then I will do my character. And meanwhile, I'm that way. For instance, with Ashes of Creation, I've backed the game. I'm not playing their battle royale thing because I don't care about it.
That's another good example, by the way. That's another company that did the same thing.
Yeah. Here, the thing is a little bit more biased because in the sense where you had one company that were supposed to do a certain job and then have asked people to participate financially for this, and then they are kind of, by publishing something in between, it's like they're not really respecting the deal that they had.
Sure.
It failed that way. And if they're not respecting the deal, it makes sense that people are asking for refunds. Now, on the other hand, it's not exactly that either. So it's a very, very delicate situation. But I can absolutely understand that people are pissed.
Sure,
because this is
absolutely.
a situation where you can be annoyed.
Yeah. And I think Jacobs has come out and said, everybody has the right to be annoyed. I understand that this is going to upset some people. And again, you have the right to ask for a refund if you want. But what's been interesting to me about this is there have been quite a few people who are complaining because even though there is a refund policy in place, City State Entertainment is requiring the customer to provide a proof of purchase in order to get a refund. And this is making some people upset, which boggles my mind.
So that makes no sense.
It's very simple. If you have purchased something through PayPal, there is a receipt, and you have an email receipt of that. So a good example of this is people. A lot of people are saying, "Well, I can't find my receipt. I don't have access to that email account anymore. I forgot how to access that email account. It was 7 years ago, blah, 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 blah." You have a lot of people who are making up all these reasons why they don't have the receipts, but they are saying, I have an account. I'm able to log into the game. Therefore, there is proof that I have purchased the game. I should be able to get a refund for this product based on that. And I don't agree with that. And we used this example before the show, and I'm going to bring it up again. Let's say that I bought this phone, by the way. I bought this on Amazon. This is a Samsung 7, I believe. So I've had it for 2-3 years. So I bought it on Amazon. Now, I could try to take this phone to Walmart, for example, and say, hey, I bought this phone here. I want my money back. And they're going to look at me and go, do you have a receipt? Oh no, I lost the receipt. It was 2-3 years ago. I don't, sorry, but can you give me my money back? I bought it here. I swear I bought it here. There, look, there's the phone right there on your shelves. It's the same phone that I have. There's proof that, and I've got it right in my hand. It's proof that I purchased it, right? So there's this theory that people have that because I own it, that's proof that I purchased it. And therefore you deserve, that I demand a refund because that's my proof. That's not how, from a legal perspective, that's not how things work. From an accounting perspective, that's not how things work. As a business owner, I can tell you that I would never, ever, ever refund someone anything unless they can provide me, and which is the exact thing, the same thing that City State Entertainment is doing. City State Entertainment is saying, well, if you can provide us with the receipt and your transaction ID, which is attached to the PayPal account that you use to purchase your pre-order, if you can give us that and it matches what we have on file, we will absolutely give you a refund. But that's the
This
same thing,
is
because I could have stole this phone, right? And so just by me providing it to someone, and that's the thing, like that person could have gotten the account from a friend. They could have bought it from someone else. Like there's all these things that could be going on. So if the customer can't provide the transaction ID, they don't deserve a refund.
And we also do not really think about this legal aspect. Companies are tied to certain rules for their taxes and other things, or the investor, they need to prove certain things like us small freelance need to do, but to a very higher level and scale. And a lot of people, I think, and that's why you have so much people that are angry in general. I think that's where come the feeling of an an injustice and unfairness, and I'm a victim. It is also come because you're too much in your shoes and not enough in the shoes of the other person. There is reason in both case, in both perspective have valid reason of wanting certain things. And a company that provide a product deserve to be paid for the product if you're using it. There's certain exception or reason that could make you justifiable or basically that you can you're permitted to ask for a refund, but in most of the case, there is none. And there's also side effects you need to take in consideration that a lot of people don't even think about because they are the clients, so they own me. So I have paid, I have rights. But we need to think about all aspects. If there's rules, it's not just to be annoying. Sometimes it is because the company itself is tied to it. And sometimes the company is tied to it not because they have a super bad CEO, which is super greedy and such, but because there's rules and regulation that are part of the government. And yeah, we can start to dismantle every system that we have in our society today. And there's a lot of it that is super crap and extremely uber shitty, I agree, but yet we have to live with what we have before to do the revolution or stop to complain and start to do your
Well,
own things to change
rules,
the world.
it's kind of like rules are rules. Rules are there. In most cases, rules are there not to make life unfun, but to protect everyone, whether it's the purchasing party or the selling party. You know, rules and regulations are there to protect people. Um, Not all of them, but most of them. Some of them, I think we can all agree that there are some rules and regulations that are kind of silly, but whatever. There's justifications for everything out there. And in the legal case, the accounting case, um, I think that in a case like this, it's a tricky case. But given that he has offered to give people refunds, I think it's great. But if you want a refund, you are obligated to provide that proof of purchase so that you can prove to them that you actually are the owner of that account. And some people are saying, well, it's their responsibility. They should be able to look at my
No.
account and see that I've purchased the game. But yeah, but you could have changed emails 5 different times. Like you could have changed phone numbers, you could have changed address, you could have sold the account. You could be somebody that hacked somebody's account. Like there are a lot of different reasons why they're not just going
Yeah,
to
exactly.
offer a
Well,
refund because you claim that you own that account.
exactly. There's so many different things you need to think of, and if a company is requiring you certain things, there is reason for that, and the reason that are out of our reach because we don't think about it, we don't know about it, and they don't talk about it. Some of them are maybe under NDA or whatever.
Yeah, it's a tricky scenario. I also think there's something to be said, looking not just at what City State Entertainment is doing, but Ashes of Creation. I know maybe was it last year or the year before when they announced their battle royale plan. That made a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people upset, and I think those people have a right. Like I think at that point, if you're 5, 6, 7 years into your development, and you suddenly tell your community that now you're going to develop this other game and release it before the original
Yeah.
game comes out, I think that is definitely a case where a refund should be allowed because, and again, I'm not saying that refunds should not be allowed for City State Entertainment. I do think they should be allowed. He's allowing them. Again, you just need to have your proof of purchase. You can't just claim I own the account. No, if you can provide your proof of purchase, you can get a refund. But I think that companies should give refunds in those cases because it's not. I don't want to say that that's false advertisement, but it definitely is kind of like a, we call it a bait
They
and
are breaking the
switch.
deal.
Yeah, they're
They are
breaking the
breaking the
deal.
deal. They are not really holding their promises. In the case of Ashes of Creation, I really know why they have done that because I've really followed closely. In, like I say, it's a game that I was interested in, so I had backed it or back it.
Hmm.
It's one of the few game I've backed. And I know there's always risk when you do that, so I accept the risk. I'm accepting to take those risks. Here in this case, they wanted to try their combat system, so they had test session in place. And they had done like a sort of battle royale system, which was very basic. So you just had a map and the class and the characters, and it was really to try truly the combat system that they really want to have perfect, because it's like a backbone of their game. Without a nice combat, it will be not as pleasant. And then, as this stuff was working really nicely, they have decided to make it a separate game so people could continue to really enjoy that stuff by themselves while the other game were currently worked on. I don't think they have done in such a way where they have taken away a lot of resource from it. So a lot of people are super worried about that. I don't think their worries are extremely justified. But what is true and what is real is not what they promised when they did the Kickstarter.
So I think it's very important that everything you just said about Ashes of Creation and Intrepid Studios can exactly be applied to City State Entertainment and Crowfall, or not Crowfall, excuse me, Camelot Unchained,
Yeah.
because everything that they're doing with the new game is a result of the testing that they were doing for the original
Mm-hmm.
game in terms of the 1,000 person versus the 1,000 person PvP battles, and they were pushing the technology, and this was a way for them to continue to test that technology in an environment that is 100% PvE as opposed to PvP, and they're using the exact same engine, they're using the exact same assets. It's not like they're pulling a lot of resources away
Mm-hmm.
from the development of the MMORPG. They have investor money that came in that allows them to hire separate team members which are working on this new project. So again, everything you just said about the reasoning that Ashes of Creation split off to do this battle royale thing because it helps them develop the other game and it doesn't really take that much away. The same is exactly true for
Mm-hmm.
the other game. However, in both cases, it represents a breaking of the trust between the developers and the community because a certain portion of the community are not going to see it that way. They're going to say, we don't give a shit what your reasoning is. You're no longer 100% focused to the thing that I gave you money to be 100%
For,
focused
yeah.
on. Therefore, I want my money back. So it's. I'm glad that you said that about Ashes of Creation because it's exactly. I look at the City State Entertainment. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I look at what's going on. I 100% understand why Mark Jacobs is doing what he's doing. I agree with it. From a business perspective, it makes zero sense not to do it. You get more investment coming in, you hire more team members, you can put out two games at the same time, have two
Mm-hmm.
sources of income, which allows you to have better working conditions, better salaries, more team members.
Yeah.
You can make your game better in the long run. Unfortunately, short
That's not
sighted.
what you sold on the back
Yeah, it's also
the
short-sighted people
Kickstarter.
can't see that, and it's also not what you sold people on the Kickstarter. So
That's mostly
it's
the
a
important,
risk.
because if there was no Kickstarter
You
and
can do whatever you
it
want.
was, yeah, you do what you want. It's just private investment. The customer has nothing to say. They're just, they can be upset, but they have no right to be truly upset.
Well,
And it's something that EverQuest Next, which never released, had done as well when they were working on Landmark,
yeah.
because the people were enjoying so much during the testing this building system that they created It's exactly the same case, except that Landmark was a game that actually interested me. Well, Battle Royale, no. But yeah, unfortunately, both game went down the
It's
toilet.
it's an interesting thing because I know we've had a couple of investors who have asked us, it's like, hey, if we invest with you, can you commit to making a mobile title? And I'm like, no. Like, here's my take on that. Like, I would be lying if I said that I wouldn't love to have a mobile version of the Saga of Lucimia out there, free to play with a cash shop with microtransactions, et cetera, et cetera, et
What?
cetera.
No.
No, no, hang on. A mobile version of your game is not the same thing as the MMORPG. I'm saying a separate
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
spin-off using the same IP because it's a
Still.
guaranteed moneymaker. It uses the IP and everything else. However, that's not what I told people we were going to develop first. The first thing we're going to develop is the MMORPG. So for me, my word to the community is more important than income. So even though
Mm,
it would be great to take $1 million of investment money and put it into developing a mobile title over the next year and a half, 2 years, have that come out and have that start generating additional income, which we think we can then use to put into Saga of
mm-hmm.
Lucimia, the
Yeah.
MMORPG. From a business standpoint, it makes absolute total sense. However, I don't have the time or the energy to try to
Yeah.
find a completely new team and to oversee that team and to dedicate to getting that up and going while I'm simultaneously trying to manage the MMORPG that we're working on,
Yeah.
write the books, write the quests, do the VFX, do the social media, do the marketing, do these videos, all this other stuff. Like there's just not enough hours in the day for me to do that. And I'm not worried about the perception of my community because if we were to do that, we wouldn't be using any of the resources or money from the pre-orders from our community. It would be these investors had come on, and it was going to be one of those things where it's like, well, if we're going to do this, then we want to put money towards this, not this. And I went, unfortunately, no. Like I'm only interested in doing this right now. I would love to do a mobile version of the game later. I would love to have a console version of the game later, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not focused on that right now. So on paper, I understand why City State Entertainment did what they did because it's a chance to get more investment money, to get more team members, to do something that's going to give you an additional income stream and help you make your base game even better in the long run.
Yeah.
But the problem is you're going to have a certain, even if I did what I just said, and it's 100%, the money is 100% separate. It's not pre-order money, it's investor
Oh, you
money.
will have people that are mad
Oh,
and want to be
people would
reimbursed. Oh,
flip.
yeah.
There would be a certain portion of the community who would flip out because we're working on something at the same time as the MMORPG. Then you would have another section of the community that would flip out because, oh my God, you're doing something with a cash shop and microtransactions. You promised that you would never do anything with a cash shop. Or it's a separate thing. It's not the MMORPG. Like you have nothing to worry
Yeah.
about. Like the MMORPG is not that. Like that's a mobile title. But sometimes this is when I go back to the customer is not always right. Sometimes the customer is flat out wrong because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They only see
Yeah.
a very small portion of things. So
And they will perceive certain things and
perception. Yeah,
and then have their own opinion. And depending on their own opinion and how opinionated they are in their nature, they will want to claim their opinion as being truth and reality, and that they own or they deserve something, or that you own them something,
sure.
depending on their opinion and their perception. But we need to remember that our opinion or perception are what it is. It doesn't show us the truth. It only shows us a sparkle of it. And there's
So
many, many other facets of truth.
this is the perfect segue into the next section of this discussion today. Because now that we're talking about opinions, let's talk
Hmm.
about review bombing. And the second reason why I don't believe, why I'm not going to go on Steam and why I think review bombing is bad. Because as a direct result of City State Entertainment and a game like Ashes of Creation, you now have a certain subsection of the community who are rabidly upset. And something we can literally see, it blew my mind that this editorial was published by what I can, mmorpg.com used to be it was a once great titan of the MMORPG industry, and it has since become it's not that great of a place. Unfortunately, the original staff is no longer there, etc. But I was very disappointed when I saw this article come out the other day, where they said that Warcraft 3 Reforged deserved to be review bombed. And
Oh,
and this is an editorial that mmorpg.com published, and I am 100% against that completely.
yeah.
I understand
But
that
review bombing, it's like harassment
it's
or
absolutely
bullying.
it is absolutely harassment and trolling. There is nothing good about review bombing. There is no doubt that Blizzard dropped the ball with Warcraft 3 Reforged. They made a lot of promises. The game that came out did not live up to all of those promises. People have a right to be upset. Customers have a
Hmm.
right to leave reviews. What I do not agree with is review bombing. And this is what the editorial at mmorpg.com was talking about, how they believe that Warcraft 3 Reforged deserved to be review bombed because it was such a bad game. The only way we can make Blizzard pay is to go out there and review bomb the title until it just dies and etc. And it's like, I don't think you guys understand, the dozens if not hundreds of developers who put in 2 to 3 years of their lives to making this game. Do you think that these people just did the revamp because they're trying to make millions and millions of dollars? No, and I'm not talking about the owners of the IP. I'm talking about the developers. People who make games because they love to make games. These people do not deserve to be shit on. And when you review bomb a game, you are directly shitting on the people who make the games.
Hmm.
You might think that you're hurting the corporate overlord, but you're not. You're really telling these talented developers that the work they did sucked, when in reality they were just doing what they were told by these corporate overlords and these leads and the directors and so on and so forth. I'm not disagreeing that the game was bad, and it certainly deserved to get bad press. Bad press is not the same thing as review bombing. Review bombing, I'm going to say something very controversial right now, so bear with me. In my
Hmm.
mind, review bombing is digital terrorism. That's literally what it is. It's
Yeah,
it's not
it's
ethical,
like the.
and all you're doing is hurting somebody or something. If you want to leave a bad review of something, leave a bad review, but don't go out there and try to get all of your friends together and review bomb a game into oblivion because you didn't like X, Y, or Z about it. That's something I absolutely wholeheartedly disagree with, and I'm surprised because Massively OP also published on it, and so on and so forth. I'm watching the media, and a lot of these gaming media sites are approving of review bombing. They're actually telling people that it's okay, and in many cases, they are promoting review bombing. So,
I am like astonished. This is something I was not aware of at all, and I'm baffled by this because um yeah, for me, from what you describe, and it's not something I had conscious before because I'm not really paying attention to that side of the gaming industry. Review bombing is literally bullying. It's making it doesn't matter if it's false review. It's really acting from a rage to destroy something. It come out from that energy, that vibes. I want to punish the developers or the company for this really bad game. I had the offense of receiving. I mean, I can understand that people are not satisfied with the product, but you can be unsatisfied with the product in a more calm way instead of wanting. There's no other fight that are more worth your time, energy, and anger in the world than this game is not good. I don't like it. Um,
the
I want to
exact the
destroy the life of
yeah,
the, of this. And then,
the exact title of the thread is Warcraft 3 Reforged was review bombed, and that's just fine. Um, which blew my mind. There's another one over at uh, I believe it's. Let me find it real quick. Um, Yeah, there's multiple
When
threads going. There's another one talking about how there it says that the Warcraft 3's refund apology is unacceptable. It's not enough. Like because Blizzard came out a couple days ago and made an apology for the state of the game and said we're offering instant refunds to anybody who wants them, and people are still there are now people out there saying, well, guess what, the apology's not enough, you need to burn, you need to die, you suck, we want to see you.
no, I mean, and I don't know. It's just
It's like the company came out and apologized for it, and yet even though the company already apologized, people still think that's not enough. And this is what I was talking about earlier about cancel culture. So cancel culture is this new thing. It's this thing that's come up in the last few years because of social justice warriors. Comedians talk about it a lot because there's now there are a lot of topics that you're not allowed to talk about anymore when you're doing comedy on stage, because if you do something or you say something that is considered to be offensive, you will now get this whole army of social justice warriors who will start a cancel crusade to get you canceled, to make sure that you never work again in the industry, to make sure that you are now considered a social pariah.
this is horrible.
It is
Do you
horrible.
do you do you hear, guys? You that are watching the video right now, how mean this type of behavior are. I understand you don't like a movie. All right. You don't like a game. You think that the developer has been like very greedy and they have, like false advertisement and all that kind of stuff. Does it justify so much rage, so much anger, so much hatred? There is no justification of that. I
So,
mean, if you had your family raped in front of your eyes and decapitated, yeah, okay, I can understand that you have that rage. But for a video game,
or a movie.
for a
People do it against
movie,
movies and comedians.
like yes, like the Star Wars movie where
Yes,
the
perfect
the
example.
girl had to remove her Instagram account because she got bullied, harassed. It's a real person with real feeling that has participated to a movie. She don't deserve
No.
all of that energy, and people don't realize this is something we're going to enter into philosophical topic, but with me it's always there. Feelings that you're sending to someone, they are not unexisting, they have some matter, it's an energy. So when you are hating someone, you're super angry and you think about that person, you don't need to be in front of that person or insulting him for this person to receive a sort of echo of your own feeling. The feelings are energy and they're filling up the universe. And therefore, when you send so much bad energy to someone, it will affect that person. Like, really, when you're reading a very nasty message, the message is not killing you or whatever, but you receive all this stuff. You feel it in your heart or in your gut. You become sick. You have nausea because you have someone really insulting you and it's touching you. Do you imagine that person receiving thousands of it?
Yep.
How can it not affect you? It's literally killing you by inside, but no one can see it. It's absolutely dangerous. So
So,
please
this
don't do that
is
ever.
no, this is exactly why I refused to put our game on Steam, 3 years ago. And it's why still refuse to this day to go on Steam. And it's why I see a lot of people out there who say they hate Epic stores. They hate the Epic store because the Epic store doesn't allow them to leave reviews. And the reason that the Epic store doesn't allow you to leave reviews like Steam does is they have come out and said specifically that until we can figure out a way to allow a review system that is fair, moderated, and tolerant, then we're not going to have a comment or review
Mhm.
system. And I wholeheartedly support that, because until you can come up with a way to counteract the social justice warriors and the cancel culture and the review bomb people, until you can figure out a way to counter this digital terrorism, it's better to not have any sort of commentary system at all, which is why I refuse to be on these platforms, because I wholly accept that our game is not going to be for everyone. And I wholly accept that somebody out there can write a review of my game and say, I don't like the writing, I think the writing sucks, or I think the graphics suck, or I think the combat is slow and boring. I agree with all of that. You have the right to say that. That's freedom of speech, freedom of
Mhm.
opinion. Absolutely. You do not have the right, however, to go
This
out and
developer need to die and burn in
correct,
hell for the
correct.
shit they've served me.
Yes, that's exactly and that's what review bombing is. Review bombing is when someone takes their rage and their hate and their anger and they take it out on a developer because they think that that developer needs to pay because they didn't create like this perfect piece of art or something. And this is where, a lot of people don't understand libel and etc. When you talk about slander and libel. Well, I've said this in the past, maybe briefly in an episode where I said, I'm okay with someone going on YouTube and saying, you know what, guys, Saga of Lucimia is just not for me. Like, I didn't like the combat, I didn't like the writing. I'm okay with all that. What I'm not okay with is the moment someone goes on their channel and says, you know what, guys, I didn't like this game, and I think the company needs to go out of business because they did such a shitty job with this game. So I'd like all of you to go out there and review bomb this game, and let's make them go out of business. Because now we've crossed into this territory of libel and slander, which is where you are specifically with the intent to do harm.
Yes, exactly.
You
That's the
are you are
problem.
now attempting to do harm to an individual or a legal entity, and um, slander and libel are slightly different because one is for verbal accusations and the other one is for written accusations. But the point is, when you're putting something like that out there, where you're specifically saying, "I didn't like this game," or "I didn't like this patch," or "I didn't like this, or this," and I want that company or that person to suffer, so I want all of you, my fans, to not buy that product and to not support this developer, so on and so forth. You have now crossed the boundary from criticism into libel and slander. And libel and slander in every single country on the planet are I'm able to pursue legal action against someone. If someone is making libelous or slanderous comments against an individual or a company, the receiving participant has the legal right to take that individual to court for libel or slander. And this is what I don't think a lot of people don't understand the ramifications of review bombing, and that's why you have seen in recent years we're starting to see some companies who are fighting against this, where if they see someone making a YouTube video where they're telling other people not to buy the game because it's shit, like you see companies taking these YouTubers to court, and you're seeing the fans of the YouTubers, well, that's not fair. This person didn't do anything other than state their opinion. No, no, no. They did a lot more than state their opinion. They can state their opinion. I can literally sit here right now and say, you know what? I don't like Fortnite. Fortnite sucks because for me, it's just not for me. And I can say that, and I'm just criticizing. That's all I'm doing. But the moment that I say, you know what, guys, Fortnite sucks. Epic Games need to be shut down. It's ruining the lives of children. It's ruining the lives of people around the world. Don't buy Fortnite. Blah blah. The moment I go out there and I say that and I crusade against the company, I am now entering into this territory of I'm trying to do them harm by blocking sales, and that's when it becomes a legal issue. And this is where, speaking from my own standpoint as someone behind a video game company, um, I will be pursuing legal recourse against that type of action. Absolutely. I am going to be one of those people where the moment that I see people out there making those kind of videos and those kind of commentaries, they will be receiving takedown notices from my lawyer because I'm not going to tolerate libel and slander. Now, criticism, again, we've all seen people on places like mmorpg.com, Massively OP, talk about how Saga of Lucimia looks like shit. Yeah, it does. It's early access, like alpha. It's supposed to look like shit. It's not going to be polished for a while yet, and you have
But
every
yeah,
right to say that.
even so, there's a very difference between constructive criticism, toxic criticism, and then crusade against the bad developers that offended me with their bad project.
Yes, it doesn't even have to be
I
constructive. People have the right to have unconstructive criticism, as
Yeah,
long as they're
that's what
not
I was
attempting,
saying.
as long as they're not attempting to harm the
Yeah,
person
that's
or
a
the
very
company.
different, big difference. But even so, and this is something we can discuss entirely in another video if one day we want to, or if it interests you guys about the toxicity that you have on internet and how to counter it, because I have a way to counter it. And this is how I proceed in life in general. Instead of trying to fight against something, I'm trying to replace that things I don't like by something that I like. Therefore, what I do on the internet to vanquish the toxicity. It's not to fight toxicity, it's not to denounce it, except in this particular episode, but it's to try to share as much positivity as I can. And that's why I'm doing that, and that's why a lot of people think that I'm overly positive. Oh, hello, it's all flowers and rainbow. I am not. I'm like everyone else. But I've choose to promote positivity because that's what the world need more of. So, yay! I enjoyed this game. It's beautiful. Oh, I had fun today. It was great. And thank you so very much for watching this episode. I wish you all a super great day and wonderful time. See, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there have been, I've played my share of games that I didn't like. I'm trying to think. There was one we played. I think it was called Outward. It was a little independent title. I actually bought it through Steam because it was the only way to get a hold of it. And I played it for a little bit. I didn't really like it, and I never finished it because of that fact. But the things that I didn't like about it, it was never enough for me to. I cannot honestly, the person I am, I cannot imagine disliking something to the point that I'm gonna go write
Yeah.
this hateful blog post or hateful video about how the developers need to burn because the darkness is so dark that I can't see anything and it's the worst design decision ever made and they should not be allowed to make another game ever in the history of video games and like the I can't imagine being so angry about a video game that I have to make that kind of commentary, which goes to
Yeah.
show you the state of mental instability that these types of individuals have when they're making those types of comments because they obviously have something psychologically wrong with them to be making these types of comments and feeling this sort of rage and anger that they do over a video game or a movie or whatever the case may be.
In
It's really
addition,
silly.
if you really, really don't like something, the best way to have that things out of your universe is just to not pay attention to it. If you pay
Just
attention to
ignore it.
someone, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, that things is taking more and more and more importance. Where focus goes, energy flows, and that's really, really true.
The
And you
moment
don't
it
need to,
takes your energy, that's yeah. If you just put your energy somewhere else, as a general rule.
yeah,
The issue
exactly.
is that you know at the end of the day, like I said, that's those are the reasons that I'm not on Steam. Um, First and foremost for the refund policy, and second because I refuse to participate in cancel culture and this, wanton inflammatory commentary that people think they're allowed to make just because it's the internet, and I don't believe that. Um, if you and I have a disagreement, we have a disagreement and we cordially talk about it. We might even, I've never had these types of discussions with you, but I'm imagining a scenario where, for example, um, I know with Chris, we've been together for a long time. Couples have heated discussions from time to time. At no point has a heated discussion ever evolved into something where you're hating the other person. It's, maybe we had a difference of opinion on something and we talked about it and we got into a little bit of a debate and maybe there was a little bit of heat involved, but there was never the moment where I was like, I hate you. I wish you would die. You just need to fucking jump off a bridge, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's not how adults deal with things. Like, you have a disagreement. It's like, you know what? Fair enough. You've got your opinion. I've got mine. You know, I'm gonna go take a walk, come back, and then we move on to the next thing. It's like it's not a big deal to have differences of opinion on things. But I think the issue is when I mean I don't know how it is for you because you're in Belgium. The United States right now is a very politically dangerous, risky place because of the current administration. Let's just put it that way. Especially given all this uh, impeachment stuff that's been going on the last few weeks. And nowhere was this more evident than when I was out visiting my family for the holidays, where my family is wholly in favor of the current administration, and I am not in favor of the current administration. And we had some very healthy discussions about why we have differences of opinion. And there was like my brother-in-law and I, for example, we got a little heated one night, and my sister was like, "You guys need to take it down a notch." And we both looked at my sister and went, "We're fine. It's just a heated discussion. We still love each other. It's at the end of the day, we're still family. But we willingly decided to have a discussion about like immigration and gun control and all this other stuff. And we have completely different opinions on this subject matter. But at the end of the debate, we sat there and we had a few glasses of wine, and we argued a little bit, and at the end of the night it was, pat each other on the back, and no big deal. It was like we didn't change each other's opinion. But we had a healthy debate about things, and it was interesting, and at the end of the day there was no hate for each other. It was just this discussion. However, you go to the internet and you see just like, you've got supporters for the current
Yeah.
administration and then people who are against it, and they're like attacking each other. Like,
But this is one of the things with internet is that the people that are against something, that disagree with something, that have a negative opinion. When I say negative, I'm speaking about the whole negative things where you're like, "Eh," you know. That's when there's a lot more out there, because the people that are happy, they're just happy. They're too busy to spend their time claiming whatever on the internet. That's why you feel like, or you have the feeling that internet is extremely toxic. Actually, it's an illusion, and it's because the unhappy people, the unsatisfied people, and the angry people will be a lot more vocal. They will take the time. They need to rage on their keyboard and, to have a revenge on the forum. And that's why forums very often nowadays are not a pleasant place. And that's why I say the only way, or not the only way, but one of the best way, in my opinion, to counter this is to fill up the internet with cool stuff. Oh, I'm so happy today. I
cat
just wanted
memes.
to share. You see?
Just cat memes everywhere.
Yeah,
But there is
works.
something to be
Yeah.
said. Anonymity comes into it because people feel that they can say what they want to say behind a computer screen because there's no chance of retaliation. That's one of the things, and we've talked about, maybe not in the show yet, but I've talked about in the past, that I'm a big fan of, if we can figure out a way to tie people's real identities to their accounts. I'm all for that in
Uh,
games. I know not everybody is for
yeah.
that. I am, because the moment someone does something that's extremely trollish or breaks the rules or something, you can actually put a
We can
consequence to
discuss
that.
about that on another way. I disagree. So it will be
It'll be a good
interesting.
discussion.
But
So,
yeah,
we'd love to hear your thoughts on refund policies and commentary.
yeah. And
It,
today, please do me this favor. Type something positive somewhere in the internet, something cool. Try and see what it goes. So the internet is filled a little bit by good news and fun stuff and
well,
niceness and
I'm gonna leave a
kindness.
positive review on this wine. So that's my good deed for the day. All
But
right,
take
thanks
care,
everyone.
everyone.
See you next
Bye.
episode.